Our next paper is by my friend Richard Morel from the British Library, who's curator of stamps and paper money. And I recently visited him in his office, and I must admit, I was overwhelmed by what he was doing. It was just so many fantastic projects that he's got in there. Amazing. And so I have great pleasure in hearing of yet another project of his on Southeast Asian paper money.
Thank you, Joe, for inviting me, and thank you everyone for being here today. I actually want to start by way of apology. If anyone's been looking in the media lately, the library's had a bit of a mensis horribilis in the form of a cyber attack, which has rendered all of our systems down. So I've had some difficulty getting images. So the quality isn't what they normally are. So as Joe said, I'm here today to talk about Southeast Asian paper money resources at the British Library. Now, the British Library was actually formed 50 years ago this year by an Act of Parliament that led to the amalgamation of over 18 different research libraries. And although lots of people think this is books and manuscripts, we've actually got various paper money collections and archives scattered throughout the library that reflect that history. So there's around 6,000, I estimate around 6,000 examples of paper money throughout those various collections. And actually the British Library's philatelic collections have the largest. So we have in our general collections, for example, we've got a range of early plate proofs from the security printing firm Perkins Bacon, the Board of Inland Revenue Stamping Department archive, which contains materials relating to GB Treasury notes from the First World War. The most significant, of course, which in my department is the Crown Agent's Philatelic and Security Printing Archives. This was a middle organisation that would put various overseas territorial administrations in touch with security printers to manufacture not just stamps, but banknotes, cheques, passports, a whole range of other documents in addition to other supplies. There's various significant caches and material in our general collection, and then our Foreign and Commonwealth Office collection. You'll find a range of material in the India Office records, in the Financial Department records, not to mention Ming Dynasty notes and other paper money in the Chinese section. And we're starting to now find material in our printed books collection, so things like Mafeking siege notes, Parisian assignats, colonial American paper currency. So this is something that just keeps kind of growing. Now, I'm not actually going to talk today about the India Office records, but really I can't ignore it either, because, of course, the India Office was responsible for the manufacture of currency notes for the government of India, and of course that included Burma. And this is very different to any other kind of collection or archive, in that this is quite literally an intact government archive of relating entirely to the production of banknotes. And actually in this wider collection there's some examples of paper money from Taiwan, China, Korea, and many other countries, besides a lot of major rarities. And I just wanted to point out this, showing some of those rarities. So here we actually have a Government of India unissued 1911 50 rupee uniface note. You'll observe on the side, like coins, there are various inscriptions, but you'll notice there's Burmese in one of the tablets on the bottom left, just above the date 22nd of August. So although most people will think of just banknotes for India in the India Office records, you can't really ignore it. And next to it, of course, is an early McKennell bust of George V that was used specifically for banknotes. Moving on, my department was formed in 1891 with the collection of Taplin's collection of worldwide postage stamps. It took them about 8 years to curate. At the time, it was actually housed in the British Museum Department of Printed Books. And when it went on exhibition in 1902, it really put the museum on the map philatelically. So a whole range of kind of donations, bequests and official transfers of government material followed. And to date, we have in excess of 80 major collections, global in scope, covering in excess of coming on 8.5 million collection items, representing all aspects of security printing, banknote production, and so on. Within those 8 collections, smaller collections tend to get amalgamated into an area known as the general collection. And this is where I'm going to start. So one of those small donations is about 80 proofs that were manufactured by Perkins Bacon. All of them date from around the mid 19th century. Out of the 82 of them in particular relate to Southeast Asia. So here we have the Penang, a proof of the Penang $10, which was, there's some annotations on the bottom saying this was being used around July 1874. And next to it, we have the Northwest Bank of India $1,000 paper money currency for use in Singapore. These aren't proofs in the sense, they're proofs, these aren't banknotes per se, but these are actually the working documents. So these were used by the printers in the manufacture of the banknote, so you can really begin to tell those stories in production. Moving on, we have a significant cache of paper money specimens from Thomas Delarue and Company. Of course, we were doing stamps, banknotes, and other security printing products, so well in excess of 100 countries. In this collection, we have a range of Southeast Asian materials. So here we have the Government of Burma 1948 issue 1 of 5 rupees. You can see the reverse and obverse face. One of the things that strike me with today's presentation is kind of the intertextuality of stamps, banknotes, coins, the way that the designers are incorporating, you know, inscriptions and imagery from a wider cultural context. Well, the same holds true with paper money and with stamps as well. In fact, you can't really understand humanity's cultural, cumulative cultural evolution without them. We then have a wide range of the Government of Union of Burma 1948 to 50 issues. And here's the specimens for the 10 and 100 rupee notes. So again, you can see how banknotes reflect that kind of change in colonial history or political history and the change of governments and regimes. The engraving work on these are quite sublime. When you look at them under a magnifying glass, you know that the fine detail of them is something else. Moving on, we can see here how Delarue's was involved in these proofs for the Java Ship Bank 1948 issue. This is for the half-cent, the 1 and 2.5 guilder notes. They're slightly different colours. I'm quite struck about the 2.5 in particular. It's incredibly faint. I'm wondering if that's some kind of deterioration. Perhaps at some point it was on a display at Delarue. I'm not sure, so we're still trying to work that out. And then again, talking about change here, we've got another set of Indonesia notes for the United States of Indonesia, 1950. And these are treasury note issues of the 5 and 10 rupees. One of the other areas that tends to get underrepresented in Southeast Asian collections is Filipino material. Actually, best off probably in Spain, but Delarue and Company were responsible for the manufacture of quite a lot of banknotes and stamps. So here we have their paper money specimens for the Central Bank of the Philippines 1949 English issue. And of course, you've got the 1, 5 and 50 pesos notes here, the obverse and reverse faces. And again, you can see the way that you can see there's various kind of printing processes involved here, so lithography and intaglio and so on. And moving back to the iconography, you can see on the back kind of key aspects of Philippine history, architecture, some of the great heroes. So in the front face of the obverse face of the central bank, we've got Jose Rizal, who's a famous anti-colonial literary ophthalmologist, eye doctor par excellence. And then on the back of the 50 pesos notes, the blood compact. It wouldn't surprise me if I'd be able to identify the painting that's based on, so you can see how you can use art history here to pull these elements together. These were actually acquired by someone working for De La Rue and then donated to De La Rue and then given to us. So these are paper money specimens from Siam or Thailand, issued between 1902 and 1918. They're uniface notes rather than biface. Again, one of the things I love here, when you look at the various languages on these scripts, we've got Chinese, we've got a form of Jiao, we've got Siamese and so on. So it really shows the kind of way that these notes would be moving between people. And then we have some more technical aspects. So I've got a competition for you all. One of them I don't know where it's from yet. These are examples, proofs drawn from the vignettes for various paper currencies and financial instruments from Thomas De La Rue, so bond certificates, share certificates, banknotes, and so on. And one of them will appear later on a banknote, and so see if you can spot it. So you can see the kind of different components that work through. Now, sometimes you can have a banknote, but you could look at a banknote in a different way. One of the other collections in the general collection is a presentation album by a paper manufacturer called Wiggins Teep and Company. And we're lucky enough to have one of these. Sadly, for conservation, the material they were in was not great, so we had to take them out and put them in polyester. But each of these banknotes here, so like this Union Bank of Burma 1953 10 Kiats issue, you've got the manufacturer using these to market the quality of their papers. So in this particular instance, they were looking at the watermark within the window of a peacock, which you can't sadly see in this light, but it mirrors the other side. And again here, we have the Malay of British Borneo 1953 issue. And again, on the back, one of the things I like here is you could see you've got the various languages, you've got the famous official portraits of Her Majesty Elizabeth II. And then on the back, you've got one of the things that does get understudied actually in the West is the spread of Western style armorial bearings or coats of arms throughout Asia. So India, Southeast Asia, even East Asia. If you look at the HSBC banknotes, for example, they have the colonial deputed seal on them. So you've got these kind of ornamental safeguards, kind of objects with textual visual elements that are there for the purpose of legitimacy and rule. At this point, they were looking at a type of thread. Later on, of course, we have the 1953 issue 10 baht. From Thailand, and then we get smaller collections. So this was actually donated. These aren't rare, but still it shows the kind of one of the ways we could get donations. So these are Burma 1941, 1944 Japanese occupation issue half rupees. We've got a whole stack of them. We're getting notes like this all the time. And actually, banknotes and stamps are all still very heavily used in diplomatic gifts. So like one of the more recent acquisitions we've got, I'm not a big fan of these myself, but it shows their kind of diplomatic significance. So this is a Bank Negara Malaysia 2017 commemorative 600 ringgit note. So it's commemorating the 60th anniversary of the Federation of Malaya Independence Agreement. Now this note itself, looking beyond the iconography, looking beyond the physicality of it, is a nice piece of diplomatic history. It was actually handed over by the head of state during a visit to the British Library just before the pandemic. So, it came with some stamps. So you often find that we get a lot of material via, ambassadors, diplomats, heads of state, and that's quite an interesting area. So sometimes you can have quite plain-looking presentation packs that aren't very rare, but when you go to the provenance of them and you contextualise them, you can actually see how these objects kind of infiltrate throughout society. And I'm going to cheat a little bit on the next slide. Turning now to one of the bigger collections, which is our Foreign Commonwealth Office collection. Now, it's predominantly, as one would expect, kind of stamps and postal stationery and the like. So the Foreign Office kept a record of these from various parts of the British Empire and Commonwealth. But it also includes a small but not insignificant body of paper money. So it includes an album of Indian currency notes. Some of these are of a type, some of them at the bottom in particular will notice for more local circulation. So here we have the Government of India uniface notes, the underprints issued between 1918 and 1927. The bottom, the high denominations at the bottom, so the 500, 1,000, 10,000 rupee, they were actually issued in Calcutta, Bombay, for more local circulation. But nevertheless, when you look at the languages on them, various languages, and there is Burmese on there somewhere, I would have taken it off of one of them. Take my word for it if you can't see it. But even the top ones, so again, sometimes you've got a type note that's transnational. In fact, when you look at this design, this is a common banknote design for Ceylon. You can see the typographical similarities, and also East Africa, British East Africa. So you can see how the rupee influences kind of stamp design through the Indian Ocean region, which is nice and fun. Over time, of course, as technology and reproductive technology, like photography and printing techniques develop, you have that historic catch-22 where you've got to outperform the forgers and the counterfeiters. You begin to get the introduction of pictorial series. So again, it has a very, very nice set of the India 1923-1941 portrait series, the 5 and 10 rupees, as you can see here. And again, lots of Burmese material in there. Again, moving forward, we've pretty much got complete sets near enough. Government of India 1925 to 1933 portrait series for the 10 and 50 rupees. These were, like I say, sent in. Moving on to the 100 and the 1,000 rupees. And then for the next reign, of course, you begin to get the kind of Government of India and then the Reserve Bank of India 1938-57 portrait series. It's quite interesting because although India was producing its own stamps initially, like the 1850, the 1854 Anna, with these, all the banknotes were manufactured in the UK till quite late because of the costs and the technical skill involved. I've done previous talks about Nasig, which I won't bore you in here, but you begin to see that transition from kind of that reliance on the imperial core and those technical skills becoming more peripheral, to spreading out back to India so they can produce their own notes. So within those underlying those physical objects, you've got all that cultural, historical, political, economic context. Later on, of course, we get particularly post-independence, we begin to get the Reserve Bank of India portrait series, and then it moves again. These are the higher denominations before we move into kind of. They also do the early Burma banknote series, which we've got here. My favourites are always the 10,000 rupees. Of course, you'd never have seen those in general circulation. They're more like official bank transfers. And really, I'm going a bit Burma overkill here. So by this point in the presentation, oh God, that's a lot of Burma. What about everything else? So I thought, right, at that point, I'm going to switch tacks. I'm a bit schizophrenic like that, but there we go. So the most significant archive for us, of course, and probably arguably as significant as the India Office one, is the Crown Agent's Philatelic and Security Printing Archive. And it's a massive archive, predominantly philatelic. It includes 60,000 paintings that the designs were printed from. It includes about 5,000 banknotes, various other kind of documents, and all aspects in the production. So again, it's a working archive, it's a working document, and it has a lot of unique materials. So for example, here we've got the essays and proofs here for the George VI Malay issue, showing the portraits for the $1, $5 and $10 denominations, and of course the colours don't necessarily match the issued note. Working forward here, we've got more proof materials. So we've got colour proofs on my right. That's probably your left for the $1. So you can see the green and the blue. And then on the left, particularly for this 20-cent issue, there are a lot of problems and amendment with these. And what you can see above is the approved design. Then for the second plate proof, you'll notice just below the King's portrait, they've amended and they've included some vowels into the jowlery. So you've got those kind of stories that you can work through. And you'll also notice as we go through various notations on the banknotes, these aren't collector pieces, these are working documents. So, and you can chart the whole, each successive print. In addition to the specimen notes, we also have things like the requisition books or the order books. So this is an example of a requisition book, and it's got an order here for the Malaya currency note paper for the various denominations, and then of course not Malaya, Singapore, and then immediately beneath it for the Singapore print runs and serial numbers for each banknote. So you can really use these to kind of reconstruct. And then they've got a range of other documents. So on the left, on the immediate tabular format document here is known as an authority file. It describes all the different plates, it describes the print runs, so it really gives you an idea, and they could refer to this as they're setting the printing up. And we've got a very small body of correspondence. So here's a couple of files relating to the commissioning and the kind of tender documents for some early Singapore notes. So again, we've got the objects. We do have some related paperwork that helps fill that story out, and also helps you assess the rarity of your serial numbers, which a lot of banknote collectors are very passionate about. Now, turning from the general archive to the actual region, we have this collection is particularly strong for Singapore and successive Malayan kind of administrations, and the print runs they're near complete and they're quite early. So here we've got examples for the Strait Settlement 1898, 1921 issue, £1 note. Various types of, again, printing techniques, micro prints, the papers. So they're really complex composite documents. It's not just ink and paper. Moving forward, we have here again to the 1898-21 issue, $10 and $100. Lots of the tags on the back are really the only iconography, but then the languages themselves are highly showing the kind of cosmopolitan area of kind of this part of Southeast Asia. We also have the rare high value issues. I've not put them all in because it's a bit overkill, but these are the 1916, 1919 high denominations for the 50,000 and 1,000. We also do have the $10,000. And then, of course, we have the examples of the Strait Settlement 1919 emergency issues, so kind of war impact on monetary supply. And then as the reign changes, here we have the next run, the Strait Settlement 1925, 1930 issue, $1, $5 and $10. Has anyone seen it yet?
Yeah.
Oh, well done, Joe. You spotted it. You'll notice the reverse phase vignette. We saw the proof for that earlier on with the island, with people walking along the beach. So you can see how these various collections sometimes kind of key together very nicely. We then move to a more what most people would now recognise as a banknote, these kind of portrait series issues for 1931 for George V for the Strait Settlement. And then again, you see the changes in kind of colonial administration in the area, because by the next reign, of course, you end up with the Malaya, the Board of Commissioners of Currency for Malaya issues for George VI. And here we've got some of the low denominations issued between 1941 and 45, so the 5, 10, both of them are, well, both my specimens I took pictures of are actually uniface, and then the 20 and 50. And again, you see the armorial bearings, copies of various, that will appear on seals, on flags. So you're getting that iconographical representation kind of being reinforced again and again. Here we have the higher denominations. Here we have the higher denomination, so you can see that typology kind of continuing through the reign. And again, going right the way up to the $10,000. These are actually beautiful, and the main security features on these wasn't so much engraved as that watermark. Of course, you're thinking Singapore Malay, you've got the lion, you can think of the lion fountain. Moving on to the next reign, we have the Malayan British Borneo 1950 issue of Elizabeth II, and then, of course, the higher denominations. And then, of course, after kind of that rule, you begin to get the 1959-61 Malayan British Borneo notes, and you're beginning to see around that kind of post-colonial, that complete iconographical change from kind of Queen armorial bearings to a much more kind of egalitarian, dare I say it, egalitarian approach to representation. And then some of my favourite sets, we do have the the unissued Republic of Singapore set, which is on display. Here we have the paper money specimens for Singapore. In addition to these, one of the things that I think often get overlooked with paper money, these other kind of financial instruments. And I'd really urge people, I think, some of these really get underused. So we have a very small body of stock and bond certificates in the collection. Literally a handful. But in the wider library, again, there's more. So I know there's well over 100 Chinese bond and share certificates in the Chinese section. There's Russian material. And I would love more of these in the collection because curatorially, not just technically in terms of the engraving, but curatorially, if you want to chart climate change, industrialization, these bond and share certificates are literally the building blocks of the modern capitalist world system. And that you can tell a lot with the stories on these, not just the iconography and the texts and that technical aspect, but also these were what, if you wanted to set up Apple back in 1900, that's how you would exchange. It is a financial instrument. In addition to that, we do have a very good run of postal orders, sort of like small monetary exchange via the post. The example in the middle here are Victorian straight settlement postal orders. And then we've got some very strange, I'm still trying to work out what these last are, but they're lottery tickets and remittance slips. And they seem to have been sent to Delarue. They were manufactured in Japan, but sent to Delarue to kind of help, But these kind of other materials don't really get the use or recognition, I feel. And it'd be definitely, the story of modern China, for example, is unthinkable without understanding the stock and share certificates, and not to mention the wider diplomacy. Unlike in antiquity, you'd have more localized mints. The security printing industry today is still active. As of 2020, it's about $30 billion. So it's still a significant area and it still impacts. So, companies like Delarue have been manufacturing stuff for centuries for hundreds of countries. So you've got this globalized manufacturing and distribution system that is also there to be analysed and still very current. It's actually getting more and more down the kind of personal identity area than the stamps, banknotes and passports, But herein lies the point. You can't understand the development of civilizations anywhere really without monetary exchange or financial documents. And of course, many of the recent technological advances in things like CBDCs and digital currencies and the impact on freedom and so on, it shows that our technology is evolving, but there's a lot more there to be studied. So I won't bore you anymore with what I've shown because it's a bit like watching paint dry probably at your end. I hope not though. The obvious question here is how to access it. Now, when Joe asked me to do this, we haven't had a cyber attack. It's kind of weird. My career's come full circle because when I started, you couldn't access this material and it wasn't catalogued. And I did all that, and then the cyber attack happened, and now it's difficult to access and it's not catalogued, but we'll sort out. So one of the first things I did, so on the upper ground floor of the St Pancras building, we have 10 philatelic cases. One of the first things I did in post 10 years ago was to put in the first case depicted here on the left side, philatelic collections. There's a complete case dedicated to the Crown Agent's philatelic and security printing archive. So we've got a whole case of banknotes. There's several thousand on display with major rarities, the high value Palestinian notes, the Mauritius 1,000 rupee, many others. And that's open to the public even now, so you can come and look at that any time the building's open, so Monday to Sunday during opening times. And we also do have a dedicated research room. You can see two gorgeous models on the side. I look better than my boss, don't tell him I said that. Here we're working on a different collection, the postcard collection for the First World War for Wherry, but that's actually our reading room. So any member of the public can come and use this material. You need to just book an appointment. We're open Monday to Friday from 10 to 4:30. That was before the cyber attack. At the moment, we're not actually open. large parts of our services have been detrimentally impacted, and for collection security issues, and also to be in line with practices of other special collections, we're closed. We're hoping to be reopened in some form by January. We have been told that it will be a few months before we're back up and running fully. So please watch this space and do keep an eye out on the British Library website. I think I'll end it there, and thank you all for your patience.
Well, thank you very much.